Stop bailing long enough to fix the hole. Today on Growing Hope, we talk about the importance of a financial budget to fix the hole and then bail out the boat. You need both to stay afloat.
It's time for Growing Hope, a show determined to grow up hearts open to pursue the extraordinary. Because you are extraordinary! And now, live from a little cabin in the woods, nestled along Big Spring Creek, it's your host, Kathryn Lang.
Hello and welcome to Growing Hope, where we are coming together to have fun, make friends, and find ways to be relentlessly helpful. I am Kathryn Lang, your fearless dream igniter, daring you to live your big dream goals because you're designed to do more than simply survive. You are created to thrive. And in order to thrive and prosper and propel others to do the same, you need to define and live your big dream goals. You need to have balance so that you can stand strong to live out those big dream goals. And if you're going to get balance, you have to figure out a way to get it under control. Now, we've been talking about the power of budgets the last few times we've been together because what you don't manage takes control. So first we developed a budget for our time, and then we worked on a budget for our space. And if you missed those shows, you can always go over to the growinghoperadio.com page and catch up. Or you can visit snarkyrainbows.com. The shows are always in the sidebar. But since we've been talking about our time and space and getting it under control, we're going to have to now tackle our finances. Or in some cases, we're going to have to wrestle them under control. It just kind of depends on where you are in the journey. Sometimes we simply need to pause long enough to admit that there's a hole in the boat before we can even begin to start bailing and get things where they need to be. Whatever financial position you are currently in, a budget's going to help make it easier, but not just any budget. You have to find the budget that will give you the balance you need. Even if the budget only shows you where you are. Talking about finances is a favorite topic around my house. Not so much. Did you know that finances are one of the biggest causes of divorce in America? And it's not always about having too little. As a matter of fact, I would go out on a limb and say that lack of finances is never the reason. It's the way the finances are used that causes the rifts. You need a plan for your finances, one that works for you so that you will work it, so that you can control your finances instead of giving your finances control of your life. So first you're going to test your finances to see where you're spending and why you're spending. Second, you'll evaluate the results. How do you feel about what you discovered? And third, you'll adjust your expectations. Either you have to expect less from your finances or you have to find more finances. And define the goals that you want for your finances. Fourth, you'll set a new budget, make a new plan based on your expectations. And finally, the fifth thing is to review and adjust, to sit down at the end of the day, at the end of the week, and at the end of the month to see how the plan is working or not. There's a commercial going around right now, I don't know if you've seen it. It's about a mom who keeps driving this old car and the daughter keeps telling the mom, get the car. And I'm pretty sure it's for a financial organization, but I'm not 100% positive. But in the middle of it all, she does meet with somebody and they say, hey, you're on track. And then the daughter gets the letter from the college saying, you've been accepted. The tuition is this. And she throws it in the trash. And when the mom finds it, she says, why did you throw this? And she says, because you can't even afford a car, little less afford to send me to school. Needless to say, their expectations for the finances were very different. And that often happens in our journey. We have different expectations. The point isn't that the mom could pay or not pay. The point is the expectations were different. Without a budget, you don't even know what your expectations are, much less what the expectations are from the people around you. You have to take the time to define those expectations and it starts by knowing where you are. That's why there's this 5-step process in all of these different budgets. We have to look at where we are so we can determine where we want to go. And when it comes to finances, when it comes to just about anything, the things that we find value in are dictated by the budget that we make. The things that we determine to be most important are what we set aside for. What do you value? What is most important to you? What is important is the thing that you're going to put the most value on. And the more you think about these things, the more you can determine what to do with what you have. And the more you will begin to really evaluate what you have. If you don't know, then you can't make a plan to make it work. It's that simple. You do need a budget. And how you package that budget isn't nearly as important as walking through the process of defining a budget. So first, test your finances. How are you spending? The easiest way to determine where your money is going is to audit your books. It used to be that you would need to take the time to log everything you were spending for, days, weeks, months, whatever. But now we do everything electronically. So you already have your record in place. All you need to do is take the time to go through each and every transaction. Every transaction you used, your card, checkbook, store card, credit card, whatever. Go through all of it and make a list of everything that you spent. If you want to take your totals to the next level, you can figure out what percentage of each area you're spending out of the whole. Whatever works for you. But once you get this record down, now you're going to evaluate what you have discovered. And here's something really neat. It used to be that when you had to go through the process and make a record, you'd be aware of what you were spending, so you would be able to kind of manipulate the record a little bit. But because you didn't even know you were going to be making this audit, now you can't manipulate it. It's all right there in black and white. But once you do go through the audit, you need to evaluate what you've discovered. What do you think about the list that you've made? Did you expect the money to be going where it's going? Were there other places that you would have preferred to invest the money, but you didn't? Get raw and real about what you see. When I did my first audit, I found that the little bits were eating me up. A little bit here for a soda, a little bit here for a snack, and pretty soon I was a little bit out of money. It took me a lot. It gave me a lot to think about. It took me a step backwards because I knew I should have been doing better, but I wasn't. We should be thinking about how we're spending the money. We should be thinking about how we're investing it. It's not just spending it, it's investing. How are we investing it? You want to determine what is most important, why it is important, and what you can do about it, which is where adjusting comes into play. When you have gotten honest about how and why you're spending, adjusting comes next. When my grandfather was still around, he was always big on, you need to invest in land. They're not making any more land, he would say. And it's true, except in some countries where they do make more land, but that's a whole nother story. But he thought land was important to invest in. So when my husband and I first were looking for our first place, that was in the back of my head. Land, we need land. And when we found the place where we are now, I saw the land, I saw the potential, I saw the investment. We have been here almost a quarter of a century at this point, and I am just finding out that my husband doesn't see it the same way. He doesn't see that the land was an investment. We had different expectations for what we were doing. And because of these different expectations over the years, it's led to more than one, shall we say, disagreement. So you not only have to adjust your expectations to the finances, but sometimes you have to adjust your expectations to the people that are around you that are also involved in the process. So what is it that you want? What do you need? What can you do? What will you do? And that probably is the most important question you'll ask yourself. What will you do? Once you have all these ideas in place, you can begin to formulate your plan. Set your budget. Set your budget based on the information you've gathered, and set your budget based on the tangible numbers you're dealing with right now. Don't think about what's expected. Don't think about what's to come. What is now? In other words, do not count your chickens before they hatch. Budget based on now, what's in the bank, what you have, not on what is to come. Because remember, we're going to be adjusting and reviewing as we go, so you can always adjust or change your plan when your circumstances change. For now, set your budget on what is. Do you get paid every week? Set a budget based on that income. Do you get paid once a month? Or are you on commission? Base it on those guidelines. If it is commission, look at the last 6 months and base it off your lowest month or the lowest or the average, whichever works for you. But the key is to do what works for you. There are hundreds and hundreds of guides out there for setting your budget. If you can't find one that works for you, shoot me an email or contact me through the website and we'll talk about it, because if you don't find a budget that works for you, you will not work the budget and you will be in the same place that you were before you even started talking about budget. So you have to find your way to manage your funds so that your funds do not gain control of your life. Finally, you're going to review and adjust. Review more than less. In other words, the more you review, the better off you'll be. Think of your budget goals as the bullseye on a target. If you only check the target every 50 shots, then you won't know to make adjustments until after you've already wasted those resources. The sooner you look at the results of your shot, the quicker you can make the adjustments you need to hit the bullseye. The same thing goes with your budget. The sooner you see, hey, there's an issue here, the quicker you can make the adjustments that you need. When I started freelance writing, my husband was working as a teacher. Teachers get paid once a month, which works fine for the big expenses, but not so much for those weekly costs. It was a challenge for me to adjust to that change. But my great aunt had shared with me the way she had done her expenses. She called it the envelope method. And some of you may have heard of the envelope method. This was hers. She totaled up how much her expenses were going to be, and then she figured out how much each line item was required for that. She figured the percentage. And every time a check came in, she would do the percentages and put the designated amount in each envelope. When the money was needed, she went to that envelope, and she only used each envelope for its designated purpose. I began to implement this system using my husband's salary, and then when my freelance started picking up, I did the same thing with the freelance. It was a really easy transition because it works for commission or freelance income or contract income just as well as for monthly income. And when we had money left over, we didn't rush out and find ways to spend it. Instead, we set it aside. And after we reached a goal, then we got together as a family and we talked about how we wanted the money to work for us. And we were looking at it that way. Up until that time in our lives, we had been in some serious financial struggles. I mean, with my husband being the only one paid, and me, that's the whole reason I got into finances, would help increase our income. But once we made a designation, once we budgeted, once we set our expectations, then we were in the position to control the funds and the finances instead of giving those finances control of our lives. and it made a difference. If you don't take control, if you don't demand control of your journey, then you give control away. You give control to others, to things, or definitely to your finances. The worst thing ever is to not. Our finances got in the worst position they ever were when I just quit. I mean, things weren't working the way I wanted them to, so I just quit. And for the record, when things aren't working the way you want them to, quitting doesn't fix them. Just doesn't. But I did. We did what we did, and we had what we had, and most of the time the ends just didn't meet. It was a mess. And it was a mess of my choosing. Instead of fixing the leaks in the boat, I focused on bailing out the boat. And every time I would empty a bucket, there'd be two more in its place. And the buckets of water that were in the boat were just weighing me down. I had to stop. I had to stop and breathe and think and look and get honest. And I had to stop long enough to begin fixing the leaks before I could make any progress with the bailing. Do you have leaks in your boat? Test how you are investing your finances. Evaluate where you're spending and why you're spending and how you want to be spending. Adjust expectations of what it is and what you should be doing to get there. Set a new budget. Then adjust and review your budget to see what kind of progress you're making and how you can control the finances so that they don't begin to control you. My sons were recently looking for their first apartment, but they didn't just jump into, hey, we need an apartment here. They didn't even jump into, hey, this is how much we want to spend, or this is what apartments cost in that area. They started by looking at what they had. Each one of them made a list of what they had, and then they made a list of what they needed, and then they made a list of what they wanted. They totaled up all of their savings. And when they looked at the cost that it was going to take them, they figured out a way in the upcoming months to get to that number. The neat thing was they started 6 months out. They didn't wait till they got there. So they were prepared. Because they were prepared, they were able to focus on the things that they wanted, the things that were most important to them. They were able to adjust their expectations to fit into those highest priorities. And one day I was listening to their conversation, and one of them said, does it include water? The other one that we looked at cost more, but it included water. So they were already thinking about how expenses were going to be piled up and how those expenses were going to come into their overhead. It encouraged me to hear that they were working through the process of the budget, but not just apples to apples. They were looking at all the fundamentals that were going to be involved. And that's what a budget does. It helps you put value on different areas, and it helps you determine the price that those areas really hold for you. Said another way, your budget will map out your priorities. What matters to you? Does it matter enough to budget for it? You can gain control of your finances. You can fix your finances. You can fix the leaks in the boat. You can have your balanced life. Create the budget that will get you a little bit closer to that place. Thank you so much for joining me today for Growing Hope. Sharing with you encourages me to do more and to pursue my little bits. Giving encouragement provides encouragement. And often we don't even know that showing up was as much of an encouragement as it is. Now, how can I be an encouragement to you? Visit the Growing Hope Radio Facebook page to connect with me, or email me at contact@growinghoperadio.com. Share with me your thoughts on budgets, or how budgeting has worked for you, or maybe the struggles that you're encountering. I look forward to connecting more. I am Kathryn Lang, and I'm here to tell you that hope makes a difference, because every day holds the promise of more, and every action contains the power of possibility. It's not about what the world says or even what the world shows. The strength of hope and encouragement will and does push through the limits and the walls of the world. My prayer is and always will be that the words I share are helping establish foundations of hope that will shatter the delusions of the world around us. Until next time, remember, be blessed and be a blessing.
Thank you for joining us for Growing Hope with Kathryn Lang, where we are sharing hope, encouragement, and inspiration to do more. Visit www.kathrynlang.com to invite Kathryn to be part of your event or to share your own stories of possibility living. Until next time, remember that a seed of hope planted and nurtured will grow up into a world of possibilities.